When I graduated the 10th grade, our family moved from Bennettsville, South Carolina to Wynne, Arkansas. And one of the first things that we had to do when we got there was to build a house. My dad and my mom had given up their jobs. They were living off their savings. And before we could start the business my dad wanted to start, they needed to build a house. And so my grandfather was a contractor and my uncle was a contractor, and my dad never met a problem he couldn't solve, and I had just finished the 10th grade, and the four of us set to work building a house. Now I'm going to be honest, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And also, to be honest, my work ethic at the time was not the greatest in the world. And so there would be times when my grandfather and my uncle and my dad would be working really, really hard, and they'd be forming stuff up or laying concrete down or whatever it was they were doing. And I would just kind of stand there not really knowing what I was supposed to do. And my grandfather gave me some advice that I have never forgotten. He said, "Tim, do something even if it's wrong." I think that advice stood me in good stead my entire life. From the time of building that house to the time of working for several years for my dad, to going back to school, finishing my degree, working several jobs, having more than one career. It has always been trying to get as much done as possible, even if I didn't know if it was the right thing or not. And so I really came to value the feedback that came to me in whatever job I was doing. During that time working on the house, my grandfather taught me how to swing a hammer properly, to give my arm a rest, and how best to drive nails. He showed me how to measure using a tape measure so that when I could measure twice and cut once. He taught me a lot about how to finish out sheetrock and how to wire things into the wall and a lot of other things as I would work around, and he would come by and tell me, if you'll do this, that job will be easier, or if you'll do this, it will wind up being better. It will last longer. Now, my uncle taught me how to drink coffee, and that was also another very important thing to learn. But that feedback that I got in working on that house showed me the importance of feedback in everything that I was doing in life. That same thing is true for students. So we have a lot of students who totally misunderstand what's happening in a classroom. They think that the reason they're there is to get 100. The reason they're there is to get a GPA high enough that a college will look at them. That is, the grade that they get means absolutely nothing if the teacher is not coming along behind that and giving feedback to the student, not just during the classroom time, but in the grading process and after the grading process, to give feedback to the student of how they went wrong, how they can improve, where this essay was weak, where the strong points are, all those different kinds of things. Without that feedback, the grade is absolutely useless. And quite honestly, this is why teaching is so hard. As a elementary school teacher with 25 kids in the class, 25 squirming, always moving, never quiet kids in the class, to give feedback to 25 different human beings is a monumental effort, especially when you give feedback on almost everything that individual student does in the classroom. The same is true if you jump all the way to high school. In high school, teachers have anywhere from 90 to 120 kids in a semester. That's 200 kids in a year, and every single kid has got to get feedback on whatever it is the teacher's doing in that classroom that causes the student to do work. And without the student doing work, we really don't know if we've done anything or not. As one educational specialist said many, many years ago, if the student has not learned, the teacher has not taught. How do we know what the student learned? How do we improve that learning? Through feedback. If there's one thing that I could tell teachers to do more than anything else, is study the ways to give quality feedback to your students on everything. Not everything needs to be graded. Not everything needs a point scale, but everything, every single thing needs feedback. We'll see you next week.